Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. It's the 12th of March. It is episode 20 of Lessons in Leadership. I'm Mary Gregory. It's wonderful to have you here, and I'm delighted to welcome today Nick Sanderson, CEO of the Audley Group. Hello, Nick.
Good morning, Mary. Morning, everybody.
Very good to see you here, Nick. Thank you for joining us. I feel very excited about having you here, and I'm particularly curious because as an entrepreneur and as a leader, you have set up two large organizations completely from scratch. So that's quite a phenomenal achievement. So I'm sure you've got lots and lots of things to share with us about that. So I think, you're currently leader and CEO of Audley, the Audley Group, actually, who provide quality accommodation and care for the elderly. I would like to know, though, really to kick us off, you started the Audley Group from nothing. So I'd like to hear a bit about your journey from taking it from nothing to now being CEO of a large corporate organization. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, it's different. Starting is always the exciting bit, the most exciting bit. If I was absolutely honest, and I shouldn't say that if any of my colleagues are listening, because of course it's great fun now as well. But that adrenaline that you get from literally having an idea, developing it from nothing, and literally we started Audley from 2 rooms above a bookshop in Tunbridge Wells. Myself, my hugely regarded finance director, who's still a colleague of mine in something else I do. The creativity it requires, the courage it requires, to be honest, as well, and particularly in a sector that was so undeveloped in the UK, was fantastic experience. And I was talking to someone the other day who's just in that position now with the new business, and slightly enviously, actually, I was listening to their tales, because it is a wonderful time when you're doing things often for the first time. Very different to what I do now. I have a lot more responsibility, and that responsibility comes really from the knowledge that there are 900 of our staff, 2,500 customers who I have a responsibility for. When you're starting, it's just myself and my family, and you can afford to make the odd mistake because it doesn't affect people that much. That's a bit different.
Yes. So you've grown from sort of 2 of you in an office in Tunbridge Wells to being the big organisation that you are today with 900 staff. What keeps you going then? You say it was great fun in the early days. You loved it, but there's something that keeps you going now as well. So tell me a bit about that.
Well, it's always innovation, and change is an essential part of running any business, any organisation of any size. Even if you think of businesses that are single product businesses that just do what they do and keep doing it, like Coca-Cola. Let's take an example. Coca-Cola is continually refreshing what it is they do and how they do it. And we're no different. And we are always learning from our customers and what we've done well, what we've not done well, how we should develop, making sure we keep up with technological advance, etc. So it's not as if I've sort of got it to a point where it's now all done. I just have to go to work to carry on doing what we're doing. You're doomed to fail if you get smug and complacent and think you've achieved what you want to achieve. It's a continual challenge to do things better and differently. So I still find it as interesting as it ever was. There's still a challenge every day to do things better. And what keeps me enthusiastic, because I want us to continue to improve and frankly keep our position, as I would like to think, as the leaders in what we do.
Yes. And so I hear then that there's never room really to get complacent, that there's always the need to keep learning and keeping wanting to look at how you can keep innovating as well.
I think as a market leader in the sector we operate, which is going to be a rapidly expanding one, somebody described me the other day, an expression I'd never heard before, as a snowplow. You could call it a disruptor, if you like, in more contemporary language. But the snowplow, the principle being somebody has to go first to clear the snow, and then it's relatively easy for everybody else to follow behind on a nice smooth road. And
Right.
I've seen that. I have been in both of my businesses trying to do things differently the way they were done previously.
Yes.
The thing with that is, I hear often people say to me, in fact, an advisor of ours said to me recently, how many people come into his organization who say, I want to get into this sector, I want to look after older people and do it better. And they say, how do you want to do it? You say, well, I really want to do it like Audley, but better. Because you do, don't you? Anybody following behind the snowplow
Yes. Yes.
walks down and says, well, I want to do it, but better. So it's beholden on us to ensure that we continue to do it better, so that when they come in behind us, learning from what we've
Yes.
done, by the time they've got there and done what we've done, but better, we're already better than they are. So it's
Yes.
a continued progression of ideas and improvement to make sure we keep ahead, and that keeps it interesting.
Yes.
And
I hear that.
that's what
And
gets me in the morning.
it's almost like you're taking a plane ride, but you're never going to reach the destination
Yeah,
because you're going to keep finding new places on the journey to stop off and keep
absolutely.
innovating.
Life generally, isn't it? You should never be complacent, and you have to continually question. And when someone tells you that they've cracked it, they've found the solution, their business model, their product is as good as it'll ever be, then you should sell their shares, I would suggest.
Okay, great. And now we've got a few people watching today, Nick. So I'm just going to say to those people that are watching, if you have any questions, please pop them in the comments box, and then we can field them to Nick live as we go. But I'm going to continue talking to you while people might think about that, because I'd also like to talk to you about, you keep the organization, you keep the business fresh to stay ahead as market leader, but you must have been through quite a phenomenal year in 2020 and going into 2021. So I know as market leader, dealing with your customer is a vulnerable part of the population. I'm interested in how you navigated that year and some of the challenges you've had to face during this last year.
Yeah, it has been an extraordinary year and really challenging and quite frightening for all of us.
Yes.
Because of that responsibility I was talking about earlier, and that's from us as leaders of the business, for responsibility for our staff and our owners. You think that's another thing that we learn in business, is you think you've seen everything. You've never seen everything. There's always something comes at you. And what was a pandemic on our risk agenda? Yes. Did we have a fully formed plan for it? I'd be lying if I said we did. And this, almost exactly 12 months ago, when it took off, we had to work very quickly to get ahead of it. And all I can remember saying to my colleagues on our crisis management team, who did an amazing job, all of our team and staff did a fantastic job, was we should be anticipating and keeping ahead of events rather than let events run us. And I think if I was being particularly critical, I think that's the mistake the government made, actually, was they were always on the back foot. And in these situations, you just need to get ahead. It's much better to be criticised for overreacting, particularly in the areas we work in.
Yeah.
And preemptive action ahead of events as best you could anticipate them. And they did. And we were saying to our customers and our staff early on, this is what best we can see, how we think things are going to develop. These are the actions we're taking and why. And that a critical part as well, communication, keeping people informed of not only what decisions we were making, but why we were making them and why we were the best. And I'm glad to say it worked. I mean, we've been able to keep our villages secure, keep our owners safe and our staff safe with really very low levels of infection, even compared with just the wider community. So, yeah, everyone's done an amazing job.
Great, that's fantastic. So I'm hearing that even though it was for all of us, it's been unprecedented in terms of what's happened, but you very quickly got yourselves onto the front foot, is what I'm hearing, and took preemptive action. Can you give us some examples of some of the actions that you did and how you engage the people, that's the people who work for you to actually take those actions on and work with your customers?
Well, the critical thing, and it was almost exactly a year ago, if you remember, so we're in middle of March, and it was a time when, well, actually, this was Cheltenham Festival week this week with 120,000 people meeting in Cheltenham, which was how the government were too far behind the curve.
Yes.
Was we were making decisions to shut our villages to outsiders.
Yes.
And it was a difficult call. It was a difficult choice because it was ahead of government guidance, and it looked as if we were overreacting.
Yes.
Uh, we had to sell that into our owners to say, we're going to restrict access to the villages, including from your families and friends, as best we can, and introduce rules such as temperature checking and all of the things you would do, PPE. We were very well ahead of. We have an extraordinary procurement manager who's brilliant at sourcing things that I could never know how he finds them. I'm not sure, I should ask sometimes. But we were well ahead of getting in supplies, and we were introducing rules around PPE and use, and particularly with our care teams. And we sold it into our customers as exactly that, which is, we think this is coming, and want to be keeping you safe as soon as possible. We had a bit of resistance, truthfully. All of our owners live within their own homes, their own apartments, and some were a little resentful that we appeared to be imposing martial rule on them. But a very small number, most understood. And of course, then what happened, within 2 weeks, it was clear we were all going to have to live under those sort of rules.
Yes.
Then we looked as if we'd made the right call. So we just had to work hard to convince them that it was for the good. We might have looked foolish if it had all stopped, but as I say again, it was better to, I was more than happy to take the risk of being criticised for that than letting virus rampantly run through our villages.
Yes. So taking fast action, navigating disgruntled customers, I would imagine, that didn't really understand or want to be locked down or have measures put upon them. And yet you've come out the other side now. And how are your customers now that we're still locked down, I know, but we are coming, there is an end in sight. How are your residents now?
They're great, for the simple reason that, as of last Friday, I haven't seen today's numbers, but as of last Friday, we had 93% of them have been vaccinated. And our second vaccination, and our staff have all been eligible for it too. And they're at similar numbers. So they're actually all feeling very positive at the moment. And perversely, we've now got the reverse of what we had 12 months ago, which is a series of villages, well, all around the country, where actually all our owners and staff are protected, and it's the rest of the community are less able to enjoy the freedoms that our owners can do. So we're pushing hard to be able to open our restaurants and bars and pools and gyms and spas. So there's, rather jealously, I think those children and grandchildren are looking with envy at all of our owners living in the villages, because
they can do. Yeah. That's a great result then, in terms of having taken such positive action so quickly. And in terms of the people that work with you, your team, how have they felt looked after through this crisis?
I don't know, but I do know. To be fair, we have staff survey and regular interaction with them, and yes, I think they felt that we've been supportive of them, I hope, and kept them safe, supported those difficult decisions and policies they've had to implement with our owners. We've also kept, in both actually within the villages and with our staff, we've tried to as well engage with them through this new medium of communicating, as we are through Teams.
Yes.
To actually make them feel that they're still part of us and part of the organisation, which they miss from being in the office or within the village setting. So we've had an awful lot of interactivity, including quizzes. Myself and my COO host a quiz, which is hugely competitive. We have extraordinary events going on, all our virtual drinks parties, amazing efforts from all of them in keeping our entertained. So it's actually been quite fun, as much as in this sort of two-dimensional medium. it's been a lot of fun. So I hope, in answer to your question, they feel we've supported them, and I hope they really appreciate how proud I am of all of them, and appreciative of what difficult work they've done in really difficult circumstances.
Yeah, yes. So as CEO, you've kind of got the broad shoulders. You're weathering the whole organisation in some respects. I'm interested in you as a leader. How have you managed yourself through this? So how have you made sure that you're okay on a daily basis?
Good question. Well, I have an incredibly supportive wife and family who've been with me on this whole journey. So that's the important. It's critically important. I mentioned it before to you about the ability to decompress. At the end of the day, particularly a year ago when it was really frightening and uncertain, you need to be able to withdraw and relax.
Yeah.
And my family helped me with that. Exercise helps me hugely with that, I find, whether it's running or whatever it is that I'm doing at that time. It's also recognised, I've been running businesses most of my working life, and I've seen most things, and I've dealt with difficult situations in the past. And I learned very early on, when you're faced with what there seem to be insurmountable challenges, and you can't see the other side of them, it can get really very frightening and lonely because you can't see a way out of where you are. And I learned a trick early on in my life, which was to sit down quietly with myself and say, look, what's the worst that can happen here? What is absolutely the most frightening outcome that could come from this situation? How would you deal with that? Could you deal with it personally? Could you deal with that? Well, if the answer is yes, then anything else is going to be an improvement. So reconcile the worst that it is, prepare for that. It's the old adage of, assume the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah.
And if you reconcile yourself to that, then just concentrate on ticking things off as they come. And you'll probably be, at least then, pleasantly surprised that it won't be as bad as you thought it could be.
Yes, yes. That's very, very wise words. And I think what I'm noticing is how calm you are. So there's something about, taking your own medicine, because you're coming across as a really calm leader today.
Well,
Nick,
that's just years of practice, not showing my emotions, I suppose. But yeah, it doesn't mean I'm not. Yes, I try to keep calm, and it's part of the reason I just gave you, actually, which is, what's the worst someone can do to you? And,
yes.
My family and my health, fortunately, and you have to put, it's perspective, isn't it? You just have to put things in perspective.
So taking perspective, making sure you've got the support mechanisms in place as well, which sounds like you have, all really positive stuff. Yeah. So as we draw to the end of our conversation, Nick, we're not out of lockdown yet. We're getting there, but not quite there yet. What sort of words of wisdom or advice would you like to pass on to those that are watching to keep ourselves going through these really strange times?
Yeah, I actually think we've learned a lot about ourselves, about the way we work together and communicate. This isn't just Audley. This is, I think, everything, and about personal relations too. This is as close as most generations alive now have got to wartime, where you are feeling isolated as a nation, as we were back in the last war, and where individuals have personal challenges greater than they thought they could ever face. And they get through them. And I guess that's the lesson that we've talked about just now, really, which is we will get through this and get out of the other side. And there are moments when you think this will never be the same again. You heard it very early on. You remember early on in this piece, these are life-changing events that will fundamentally change the way we are as a country, as a community, as companies. This will never be the same again. Well, that's not quite true, actually. 90% of what happened before will remain the same. We haven't changed as people. We haven't changed as society. We just learned our ability to deal with difficult situations. And
Yeah.
that's a good thing, because we should come out of it stronger if we learn the lessons that we've come through it. So I think it's a very positive thing. I mean, if you look particularly in the area I work, older people in our country have had a bad deal for generations. There's still that slightly Victorian tradition of marginalising people when they become socially or economically redundant, in the words, pushing them to the side of society and community. And I think what we've learned is how important it was to protect them, support them, and those who care for them. And that's a really positive thing that will come out of this. It's one positive thing. The way we interact with each other as individuals too, in the workplace and elsewhere, we've learned that this, just talking through a screen, is not enough, that we need to have social interaction to get the best of each other. All of those things will come out of this, and we will and should be stronger. And we shouldn't forget what we've learned, but also not be frightened about what it will represent for the future, because a lot of good will come out of it.
Yes. Well, that sounds fantastic, and you've actually inspired me, and I feel much more hopeful, actually, that things will be much more normal as what we're used to, and certainly that need for connection. What I miss is the hugs, I must admit, that real need for connection and seeing people in the flesh and face to face again. It'd be great to get back to that, wouldn't it?
I completely agree. We're really fortunate with the people who work for us, and there's a wonderful culture within us, and we meet a lot, and we feed off each other a lot, socially as well as through the workplace, but just sharing good ideas and good practice things. And for instance, we have had for years now an annual conference and then a celebration and awards in the evening. And because everybody's very proud, and 97% of our staff are proud to work for us, when you gather them all in a room together, there's wonderful things happen, and ideas spark off, and relationships are formed, and it's a really positive thing, and we need all of us to get back to that again, whether it's as a community, as a country, but it's not long now.
Yeah, we need the kind of we need coincidences to return. Bumping into somebody, passing somebody at the coffee machine and having an idea. All of that needs to be replaced.
Yeah, somebody said to me the other day, it's serendipity we miss, that chance meeting, that moment.
That is absolutely so true. Serendipity is what we miss. That's definitely true. Right. Nick, it's been such a delight to talk with you today. Do hang around for a bit, because I'll talk to you afterwards as well. But I'm just going to say goodbye to everyone who's been watching today. Thank you for tuning in. And next week we have Donny McNichol, who is the change catalyst. So he is going to be coming on board and talking about how he energizes and gets very complex change off the ground through the human element of making it happen. So look forward to seeing you next week. Bye bye for now.